Why do we keep doing camp? Why do we keep doing this? It's becoming less and less of a, kids are on their cell phones constantly. We're transitioning school into this kind of digital platform. We communicate, we do almost everything online by distance. Why do we keep going out, taking this journey out to out into the wilderness? There's no new answer here. It's the same answer that we've always been saying. And you'll probably hear it every year. Now more than ever, you'll hear this every year from me. Now more than ever, we need MPC. We need places like MPC, summer camps. We need Bible camps that kids are going to meet with God, to learn about and meet with Jesus, to make lifelong friends, to learn new skills, do difficult things, and do those with their friends. Now more than ever, I think that we need a place like MPC, and we're going to talk about that this evening. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for being so committed to this ministry. I really appreciate it. We're going to start off by hearing from Pete, who is going to give us a review of our winter season. Pete, can I call you up to the front here?
Good to see everybody. Wow, I know everybody here. Isn't that amazing? So I'm eager to give a generation to generation site renewal update, but I'm going to start with a winter review. The winter, we went across the ice a couple times in winter, and we worked on things like starting the Gen to Generation project for this year, which is a complete renovation of Bill Mason Place. So in winter, we started to take off the interior panels that had actually been damaged with some water leaking. And we did some measurements on the building for the roof and a bit on the windows. We cleaned out some stuff, and that was the start of the Generation to Generation project for this year, which when I get to my report, I'll say more about that. For example, we also brought in the windows for that project over the ice and carried them up through the snow and up to the site. Herb helped with that, as he has for every part of this project for this year. We cut some trees down there in the way. We did a lot of firewood work over winter. And the other big project over winter was clearing out the trees that were bordering on our wastewater lagoon. And that was by order of the Ministry of Natural Resources. So we probably cut at least 10 yards on the island side of the lagoon. We just cut down the brush and the trees, the whole length of the lagoon. And that was a phenomenal amount of work. And then we dragged that onto the ice, across the lagoon, across the frozen lagoon, over the berm and onto the ice. And that was by order of MNR. So we did that work over winter as well. Boys Camp staff arrived the next weekend, and they did other work like the breezeway between the washrooms and the dining hall. They started that project by taking off the old ones. Lagoon trees, the firewood, tree removal, and starting Bill Mason Place renovations. We did a lot of work a couple times. And we did it ourselves. I borrowed a trailer. We filled them up with all the 40 windows or more of Bill Mason Place. We took them there and then came back 2 weeks later with all the glass for the big sliding doors. So I got to tell you a story about that because I like stories. A guy that was almost my age, it was me and John Clausen. We thought, for getting the glass came separately for the big sliding doors on Bill Mason Place. We showed up at the glass place with just our empty 15-passenger van. And the people at the glass place said, "Are you here to pick up the glass for Pioneer Camp?" I said, "Yes." They said two things. One, it'll never fit in your van. And two, we're not allowed to pick up anything that heavy, just by ourselves. And so John and I, both having a good southern Manitoba farming background, we said, could we try? And after John and I were lifting these, they were strapped together, and those glass is phenomenally heavy. We cut the straps off and did it one at a time, and we dragged it and we got it in. And by the time we started with the heaviest ones. And these workers were actually just watching John and me do it. And then they said, "Oh, it is possible." Anyway, I just love that story. And then we also found a way to jam them all inside the van. So that's a report on Bill Mason Place. That was the start to that. And I'll say more at Gen to Gen, but we actually completed that project on schedule, which was due to be completed this fall. And I'll say more about that when I get to that report. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Olivia. I think I also know many or most of you. And I'm here with our shoulder season report. So after this, we're going to get into the meat of the summer, the things that people get really excited about. Campers, yay! But in May, June, and September, our spring and fall, that's our shoulder season, which is when we do some very important work. So I'll talk a bit about our team, what we got up to at this time, including the groups we hosted. Well, first of all, I'll mention what we do in the shoulder seasons. So there's kind of three focuses. There's projects, like Pete was talking about, opening up site, closing the site, some of the bigger things that Jack's going to cover. There's training. We have this group of youth, young adults showing up, and by summertime we have to have enough certifications to run our program, enough people who know how to use the cheese slicer, that enough cheese will get sliced, enough people well and familiar with operating the kitchen, that the kitchen will run, enough people taking out the compost and doing that routine that they can actually train, 15-year-olds to do that come summertime. So there's a lot of important prep work going on for that. And we had a really great team this year, same as a lot of years, that, sorry, what's this thing?
That is for the video that is sending out later.
Okay, so I should put it on. Okay, sorry, I was just like, what is this thing?
We're not the microphone.
Okay, that's on. Okay, so now I can tell you who were our 4-month team, and we just really love showcasing them because they gave 4 months of their summer, and we think it's worth their time, but it's still a sacrifice in some ways, and so we really want to showcase them. Alexandra Scratch, Alyssa Wheeler, Anna Botkin, Betty Tesfamariam, Chloe Fair, Elia Nickel, Ella Scratch, Ellie Edwards, Josiah Friesen, Micah Fair, Micah Kozlowski, Ruben Parrott, Seraphim Scratch, Tobias Arnold, and Will Banman. They were our team. Yay! Yeah, that's good. And the season just had a really good energy about it. People were bought in, they were excited to be there, they were excited about everything from, one of the first projects we did was we went to Circle Square Ranch and we did an orientation there, and we also did some work projects, and they were excited to clean out ladybugs from this big teepee thing. They were excited to host groups. Yeah, just a very wholesome, gung-ho, excited to be there energy, which was so good all season long and really helped create a welcoming atmosphere that our 2-month staff, some of whom were here, yay, we love you too, could drop into. We had things like every Thursday, Ruben hosted a ping pong tournament. So we had the busyness of the week broken up with fun things like that. And that also allowed us to host groups. So that's the next point I'll cover on the note of shoulder seasons. So we can't talk about the groups we hosted this season without talking about wildfires. So you guys probably saw the news reports about that, and we were actually very lucky that we were not very affected at all. And we can chalk that up to many things, including God's grace. So we had a close eye on the news, and at the end of it, there was really only one weekend that was affected by wildfires. It was our annual May-long work weekend and canoe school. Maybe some of you were planning to come out. That was canceled because the fires were, do you remember how many kilometers away from us they were?
About 20 kilometers away from north of the Highway 1.
20 kilometers north of Highway 1, so maybe you can see that on a map. Highway 1's our access point, but we were lucky that the wind was blowing north the whole time, and so we watched on the map as the fires advanced a little bit south and hundreds of kilometers north. So we were thinking and praying of all the people and communities affected by that, and we noticed that there was more wildlife in our area because they were fleeing southward, but we were very lucky that actually only one school group rescheduled. One weekend was canceled / rescheduled, and apart from that, we were able to operate as usual. We're also just barely into Ontario, so Manitoba had a backcountry travel ban, but we never had that because we're in Ontario, so we were just very fortunate. So we were able to host this spring and fall, 7 canoe trips and 15 retreats. So the 7 canoe trips, 4 of them were schools, here from the different Winnipeg school divisions. 3 of the canoe trips were church groups. Youth for Christ, my own church came for a canoe trip. Then the 15 retreats, we had a school, 8 churches, and then 3 retreats hosted by us. Yeah, I wanted to zero in on a couple of these things here. Yeah, school groups. It's been every year we've had the number of retreats growing, which is really great because that helps us with a bit of revenue, and it's also, it's a valuable use of our time. We have this season where we're doing maintenance, and then we also get to host people during that time. And so yeah, year after year since COVID, we've seen the number of groups going up, and it's actually spreading word of mouth. This year we had at least 2 groups come because they were referred by others who'd been here before. And yeah, please take note of that.
School friends.
Yeah, well, yeah, and we're finding that schools are finding it's a really good use of their time. They get students coming outside into fresh air, and they have to jump through a lot of hoops with their school division, but they're willing to do that work because they see a canoe trip at MPC as a valuable use of their school time and money. So we don't take that for granted, and we try to really give our best service to all our campers, including school groups. Our church groups were also really fun. A couple that I'll mention, we had an Eritrean church. They came last year for 2 nights. They liked it so much, they came this year for 3 nights. So that was just like a fun, high energy group. And then another group we had was First Nations Community Church. They came because last year, Pete had a conversation with somebody on the docks at camp who turned out to be the pastor of this church. And Pete said, hey, you should bring your church for a retreat. The men came in spring for a fishing retreat, and they had such a great time that they said to the ladies of the church, you should have a ladies' retreat. And so they came, they filled up like 4 tables in the dining hall with craft projects, and they actually invited us they brought enough supplies that our staff could participate too. So that was one of our favorite groups. And then I'll just mention our MPC planned retreats. This year we had 3 retreats that were organized by us. So canoe school, as usual, is in the spring. It's a time of canoe training. People can come get their paddle candle levels. Last year that event was a big success. This year, because of the wildfires, we rescheduled it. So it was kind of spread out over 2 weekends. So still good turnout, just a little different than we expected. We had our 3rd annual canoe restoration weekend this year. So we've started restoring the wooden canoes that we have in the rafters at camp. And so year after year, we've built up a bit of a tradition about that. And I'm happy to talk to that. I could talk about that for a long time, so maybe find me afterwards if you want to hear more about that. And then new this year, we started a philosophy retreat for young adults. This was kind of one of Nate's pet projects, I'll call it. He nurtured it, he babied it all season long, the idea. And he raised it into a very healthy child, let's go. So yeah, we had a couple dozen young adults, including our staff, come out for a weekend of philosophy on the text of Boethius, and it was all covered by Anglican church grants. So kind of the vision of that retreat is to build this Christian community kind of just as school is starting. They get to come to camp for a weekend, kind of reconnect, reflect, and then go back into the city, into their towns, and keep going from there. So that's just a little snapshot. Spring and fall are important times. We get a lot of good work done.
Okay, to those of you who don't know me, my name is Anna, and during program at Pioneer Camp, I am better known as Rilla. I had the privilege this year to be part of program in a couple ways. I was a section director for Girls Camp, directed by Bonnie Dowling, the rector here at St. Margaret's, as well as I had the honor of helping to prepare the food for Boys Camp, directed by Colton Koval, who stepped into the role of director of programming this year at Manitoba Pioneer Camp. Program is the reason we do all of this, and it is the most magical, wonderful thing probably ever. It's so cool to get to watch these young kids experience new things and learn new skills through our tripping programs, as well as making connections with each other and with the incredible role models they find in our staff, and of course, experiencing the love of God and the beauty of His creation. This summer, we brought that magic and wonder to 514 kids. This is a smaller number than last year's 535, but still a bigger number than the 434 from the year before that. And this happens because of people who care. I've been thinking a lot about this year, how camp runs because everybody involved in it really cares about it. They care about the outdoors, they care about the kids, they care about God. One such person is Ben Selleck, who has been directing sailing camp for nearly a decade now and continues to make it one of the most anticipated programs of the season by campers and staff alike. Another person I think of is Anna Jansen, who has been directing the LIT program for a few years. And speaking of LIT, I'd also like to bring up the incredible leaders of the future leaders, Rachel Unger, Anya Jerzak, Caleb Field, and Asher Nadler-Smith. There's the LITs, they're over there. In addition to that are the 17 4-month staff, like myself, 28 teens and young people who did 2-month, and the number I was given was over 100 volunteers who came to serve in some way this year. And that is really a testament to how powerful camp is, that so many people of different ages and different walks of life give the time they can to make this incredible thing happen year after year. Okay, I've said a lot of numbers. They're not the first numbers we've heard today, and they're not the last numbers you're gonna hear today. But I want us all to take a moment to kind of think past that to what camp really is, and that is each of the 45 4-month and 2-month staff who came to camp this year, as well as all the volunteers, is a unique individual whose life is being changed and shaped by camp. I myself reflect a lot with my friends about how I cannot even begin to imagine where I would be if I hadn't gone to camp a couple years ago for the first time. And even more than that, each of those 514 campers who came to McKinnon or Cache Island this year is uniquely created and loved by God. And at camp, they experience that. As a section director, I was able to get to know a lot of these kids in lots of different ways. And I had the honor to share in their joy and in some of their pain. And there was this moment I was talking to this younger girl who had just shared something kind of difficult with me. And so I prayed with her and we were walking and she said, "No one's ever prayed for me." And that it really hit me right then. Like, this is why we do it. This is what makes it so important. Because no matter where these kids come from, camp is a place where God loves them and the staff love them and they are prayed for and they know it. Like, they know it at camp. And there's another camper I think of who comes to girls' camp without fail every year. And even though she doesn't really know where she's at with God, God is still working through camp in her life, because every year she shows up and there's her role models, and they're cool and they're funny and they're awesome and they can lift canoes over their head and they love God and they reflect that to each camper. And that's the impact of camp. It's not any of the numbers you're going to hear today, and it's not even seeing where these kids end up, because we won't always see that. But it's knowing that every kid who was at camp, for as long as they were at camp, felt the unconditional love of God. And I would like to thank all of you for being part of that. Thank you.
I thought I'd give a bit of an overview on Gen to Gen, starting with this. Pause here, Nathan. Gen to Gen started, I don't even know, roughly 7, 8, 9 years ago, when we realized we need to do something with our site. And some of you might not even know this building or even where it is. You can probably tell it's on Bunny Point. It used to be our staff lounge. And we had renovated, I think. I was looking at renovations and I went to Herb and I said, "It's time we renovated this building." And Herb Entz is here. He's been, I was going to say more about Herb later on. He said, Herb's been the camp architect for all of my, frankly, decades. And he said, "No, we can't renovate this. It's not, we just can't, because it's hardly worth it." So when Neil became the executive director after me, I stepped into the role of generation to generation site renewal. And it started on Bunny Point with this building. And really, I'm going to share this to really just acknowledge that God's been a part of this from the beginning with phenomenal provisions for all the projects that generation to generation has undertaken. And I used to say, even as the executive director, I was so convinced every year that God's not finished using Manitoba Pioneer Camp because there's just too many miracles to ever think that. And all these building projects that you'll see, starting with this one, at or under budget, generally speaking, and God has provided for every one, and if you add them up, it's quite a bit. And so I just want to give thanks to the Lord publicly for that. Next one, this is what it kind of looked like on the inside. And you can tell it was called Ralph's Room, and it still is. And now let's see what it looks like now, just to say what we were able to do. That's our new leadership center, still called Ralph's Room, and Ralph's family was a part of providing the resources for it. And it was designed by Herb Entz as the architect. We salvaged the old fireplace. It's a multi-purpose room, kind of a chapel. This was the start of generation to generation site renewal. And it's a phenomenal building, and it says something when you're in it. It does say something. It aids our worship. It takes advantage of the phenomenal place that it is at camp on Bunny Point. And then I think I have a couple pictures from the outside of it. In one winter shot, I'll say another thing. Nathan has already said only 8 minutes for me. That's going to be hard. As long as I have a say, our new buildings under generation to generation will be built for longevity. Materials that need little to no maintenance and will last the longest time possible. So that's the first one. I should at this point refer to my notes. That's what it looks like in winter at night. And I actually did think I would actually wait till I find my notes here. I actually wanted to say some of the people that have been involved right from the beginning, and let me just, here they are. Herb Entz was the architect on that. It was built by, I actually want to name some names because I think it's time I did that. The American men that come up every year helped start Bill Mason Place. Norm Blaireau from Blaireau Masonry donated his whole crew for 3 or 4 days to refinish the fireplace. Steve Bigelow, which is a camp alumni at Rush Bay Quarry, donated rocks and stuff and the flat rocks that we needed. I got to say that Jack and his grandfather did all the electrical work on the ship, which was countless hours. Andrew Field from my church and another guy by the time of Mario Roy did the finish work. Fred Duick and Larry Siemens from Altona played a big part. Dave Jaros and I did the siding on Bill Mason Place. And Trevor Dearborn was a part of it, and John Clausen and Justin Zacharias. So that was Bill Mason Place. That was the start of generation to generation. All right, go to the next one. The vision for, I call this the bulk propane project. And the vision for this was actually Neil Stewart and Fred Duick from Altona. And Generation to Generation funded it, and I was a part of completing it, but it was begun by Fred Duick and Neil Stewart. And so we dragged a bulk propane across the ice, and we no longer have to deal with 100-pound cylinders. What a project. And we can go to the other two about that. We now have on-demand, high-efficiency hot water heaters connected to the bulk tank, and our kitchen stoves are connected to the bulk tank. And we have trenched in underground 2-code gas lines wherever we need propane. We estimate that it's saving about 40% of our propane cost with this project. I call it the bulk propane project. We don't have a better name than that. So thanks to Fred. And also, the gas line fitter, a retired gas line fitter by the name of Warren Klippenstein, did all the gas line work, again, volunteered it. So, all right, next. I'm going to go through all of them as quickly as I can. Jack, I think, had a part of this vision. That's a crib dock that we built, heavy enough to withstand unloading machinery and supplies by boat. And that was a part of Gen to Gen as well, and it has actually served that purpose really well. Particularly on the next project is the beginning of replacing the retaining wall on the beach. That was all made possible because we built this amazingly strong crib dock. What I like to say about that, it's anchored to the rock underneath, just at the water's edge. And this barge is from Carl Holmstrom. And we drilled into the Canadian Shield to secure this dock. If it moves, the whole Canadian Shield between camp and Hudson's Bay will have to move. So it's not going anywhere. So that was part of Gen to Gen as well, thanks to the vision. It was Fred Duke that said, why don't you build something that you can use to get machinery here whenever you need it? All right, next. This is an amazing project as well. This is what the retaining wall looked like before we took it on as a generation to generation project. Next one. And then just go through the ones of how it looks like now. Many of you have seen these. Amazing. Yeah, it's just amazing. And the rest of them. The railing was built by Trevor Dearborn with my help, but he built it with my help. And so that was also a part of generation to generation. This one really is largely due to Kimber and Jack Osiowy. Two engineers, they engineered it, they sourced it, the material, and we're there for the physical building. And what a week we had, right? Guys, it wasn't easy. It was not easy. At one time, you couldn't barely see the dining hall from the beach because we moved, mountains of earth to build this wall and then actually put a lot of it back in. We gained some beach space, we moved it in a little bit, and it's phenomenally attractive, phenomenally strong, and it's going to be there for 50 years. So thanks to Jack and Kimber on that, on the retaining wall. And then I think that might take us up to the one that we did this year. And I just want to say a little bit about this one. The vision for this came from Evelyn Laboon, who's sitting here. And she came to me 3 or 4 years ago and said, we should renovate Bill Mason Place. Albert Laboon was the director when I started. He's the one that built it 37 years ago in my very first year. And Herb was also the architect for this building that long ago. And so I worked with Albert in my first year, and it took 3 years to build, but it was time for an upgrade. And so Evelyn Laboon said, could we do something to renovate it in memory of Albert Laboon, which I was so eager to do. Albert was my mentor, my trainer, my friend, in introducing me to Manitoba Pioneer Camp. So I have a high regard for Albert Laboon, had the privilege of actually speaking at his funeral, and I'll never forget him. So we've got just a few pictures to end my Gen to Generation report, because we'll switch to what it looks like now. That's what the floor used to look like. I have some before and after pictures, and that's what it looks like now. You can see the new interior wall paneling on most of the interior, and we can continue to go through them the rest. I'll go through the people involved, and it looks new. Those are the inside pictures. So the things we wanted to get done, I'll keep talking while you do that. The things we wanted to get done on Bill Mason Place renovations was 5 main parts. All new windows, all new siding, all new metal roof, new interior floor panels, new flooring, and new metal soffit and fascia. All long lasting. None of it will need painting until it needs to come off again. So a couple key people. Going back to the first one, Trevor Dearborn refinished the hardwood floor, which was, 10 times more work than I thought. I was his helper again. He kept saying, Dad, we can't give up. We're going to make this perfect. And we did. Trevor did the floor. The same 2 guys that finished the interior of the ship were back to do the finished work on this, Andrew Field and Mario Roy from my church. Integrity Roofing did the roof. And then a big part was the man I'm looking at right now, Jacob Fair. Somewhat new to camp. He provided the siding, installed all the windows and the siding as a volunteer. Days, almost weeks of work. We need to say thanks to Jacob. I hope that's okay. Lisa, his wife, Cindy's in my first years. Lisa Evans, camp name Daisy, and now her kids are in their 20s, and her kids were baptized at camp last year. So what a moving story, and what a picture.
2 of them came out for 4 months.
And 2 of them were out for 4 months. What a cool kind of way to end my presentation. I mean, Manitoba Pioneer Camp is truly generation to generation, and Jacob and Lisa and their kids are part of that. So that's my report. All praise and glory and thanks to God. All these projects the Lord provided the money for, and when you add them all up, you would know it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I'm grateful for that. Grateful to all of you that many of you came out to volunteer in large ways or small ways. So yeah, that's all that I got to say. Thank you. You know, it's so thrilling to be a part of the MPC community, and the current team is just so really rewarding to work with. You know, Nathan as the new executive director, let me just say he's the right man for the job. I've said that so many times to so many different people. And Emily, such a strong supporter. Emily, thank you. Emily always warmly welcomes me to camp, and I really appreciate that. And the whole, Erica, our new administrator, is here. Thank you, Erica. Maybe you'll introduce the whole team. Olivia and Spencer, who's doing an exam. What an amazing team. And then the army of volunteers. I'm eager to stand back up here because I forgot the most important part. I'm going to actually end my generation, and Herb's here. I was so worried about my time when Nathan said no more than 8 minutes. I forgot the most important part. We're not resting. We're celebrating Bill Mason Place, and we'll have a celebration and a commitment service next year. But we're not resting. We're starting on our next one for next year. And it will be, I'm so excited to say, we will be building a new staff housing building on what you guys probably know as the Chalet Complex. That whole building it's kind of like the staff, it's on Bunny Point, it's like the old staff lounge, can't be renovated. My supervisor from Toronto, for some reason he calls it has 2 stories at one end, you probably know, he calls it the Towering Inferno. If we don't get it down soon, it'll probably burn down. So that project, I'm excited to say, take a look at it. We've got plans, and we're hoping to start next spring, or tearing the old one down over winter. It's more evidence of Herb Ence's good work, and I can't say enough about Herb. I already said that. Take a look at the plans. He'll explain them. It's going to be an amazing building, and we're doing it because we want to take better care of our staff. Our 4-month staff, our 2-month staff, they make the project work. And it's time we committed resources to making their time at camp more comfortable and better and more rewarding. That's the vision that Nathan and myself and Herb have, and Spencer's been a part of it, the primes. So Herb has done like lots of work already. Take a look at the plans. That's all I want to say about it, because that we're going to launch that program in earnest in January. And the reason we're not is twofold. Number one, we might not have time. And even more important than that project, Nathan will talk to you about, we need to finish our operating budget by December 31st and be sure that's taken care of first before we get to the next project. So that's why we're at a pause on that in some ways. All right, so be sure you take a look at that. Yeah, look at this. The Pioneer 3 left is leaving, finally. Let's go through the pictures and then show you a little video. We finally moved the Pioneer 3. And what a sad day. That's the size of the crane that lifted it. There's me giving instructions to position it right. That's what the old boat looks like on the trailer. And I don't know how much I can say about this. You might as well go through them all. It was a 12-hour process from the time, almost 12 hours. It took tonight. We started in the morning, and there's me saying goodbye to the Pioneer 3 for the last time. And yeah, moving for sure. Our icon, the camp that we've used it for over 50 years. And no choice, we had to do it. If there was any way to keep the Pioneer 3, it wasn't money, it was other things from Transport Canada, other limitations. And we finally lifted it off. You should know it's going to Barron's Land First Nation on the border between Manitoba and Saskatchewan. It's going to be used for exactly what it's been used for at MPC. Supplying critical supplies and people to that First Nations community. What a great thing that the Pioneer 3 would do that as it leaves camp. They were really eager to get it because it's kind of unique to find a 50-foot steel boat to operate as a tug in Manitoba. So it was so important to them, they bought it actually without seeing it. And then they were hoping to get it last fall. And we tried this spring, but there wasn't enough water to get it to Kenora, where it would have been so easy to lift it out of Northern Harbour like we've done every 5 years because Transport Canada inspects it. So it was stuck at camp because we couldn't get it to Kenora. Finally, we had to call craning companies to lift it out at the landing. And they were able to do that. And then the crane company gave us a discount because they thought it was so cool. And that's all that I'll say about the Pioneer 3. We're going to show you a short video, I think. One last thing. I asked them, what kind of journey will it be on at Barons River to get to, they pick up their supplies at Brochet, Manitoba, and then go back to their community. They said 20 hours, a 10-hour boat ride one way, and then 10 hours back to their community, from Brochet to their community. That's a 20-hour journey. And they actually said they're also behind getting supplies, so when they got the boat earlier this fall, it was going to go nonstop. So that's kind of cool for the Pioneer 3 to end that way. Here it is, Nathan's.
This is real time, by the way.
Yeah, we tried a crane company from Winnipeg. They said they could do it for $30,000. And we kind of said, no. And then we found a boat, like a crane company from Kenora that lifts boats. And this crane could do it. So farewell, Pioneer 3. Yeah. It took, and then once we got it lined up, it took hours and hours to build supports underneath it, and it arrived safe and sound. It's on, the lake it's on is called Reindeer Lake.
Hello everybody, my name is Jack Osiowy. I am the site committee lead at MPC. So just a bit of background, like the site committee is been a long-standing institution for many, many years, composed of people who have an interest in the site, the buildings and the grounds and the physical plant of MPC. We meet a couple times a year, just talk about what we've done, what we're planning to do, and that sort of thing. If you'd like to get involved, if you'd like the stuff that Pete's talked about with the Gen to Gen, or that I'm going to talk about, or if you have an interest in helping out or volunteering in something all year round, or if you have experience with buildings and mechanical things, or anything really, you just want to lend a hand, we'd be happy to talk to you. So come out to me after if you'd like to say hi or ask any more questions about this. So coming into this year, we had a number of different big long-term objectives or projects that we had on the docket kind of outside of Gen to Gen. One of them was the lagoon. So Pete touched on this a little bit. The lagoon underwent a review by Ministry of the Environment and MNR last fall, so about a year ago now, and they had a number of recommendations for us. Some of them were related to the vegetation growing around the lagoon, like the pictures that we saw earlier, and others were with the mechanical systems, how we pump the lagoon and that sort of thing. So this right here is electrical disconnect, not anything special really, but this year we replaced our lagoon pump, so not a massive investment, but it's really needed. We couldn't pump the lagoon down last fall, a year ago, because the pump broke. So we new pump, a new control box, and new spray system as well. So this is one of the recommendations from MNR that we had to replace that. So that's one of the objectives that we completed this year. So that whole lagoon system was also inspected by an engineering firm, and given we got a report and some things that we can improve on. So one of the long-term goals is going to be removing the solids that have settled under the bottom of the lagoon. So that lagoon really hasn't been cleaned out over the last 35 plus years since it's been constructed, really. So we're going to have to, at some point in time, clear out some of these accumulated solids in the bottom and do something with them. So but that's a long-term project for the future. You can go to the next slide. One of the things that can help clear out those solids without a huge amount of effort and to discourage the formation of solids in the future is aeration. So what you're seeing here is a fountain, and we were going to put some Adirondack chairs on the side here and take a picture with some drinks and say, come to MPC, but didn't get around to that, unfortunately. So this fountain here just floats on the lagoon, and it just sprays water continuously, kind of like what you'd see in a golf course or something, and it puts oxygen into the lagoon, and it helps with the aerobic decomposition of the solids and organic matter in the lagoon. So that's one of the things we've done. So if you want to have a nice little picnic, we can set up some chairs right there for you.
Actually, really incredible effects on the health of the lagoon. Very cheap.
Yeah? Yeah. One of the other projects that we undertook over the summer was revitalization of the Halifax space. So this is a great example of something that wouldn't necessarily qualify as a gen-to-gen project. It's not massive, but it has a big impact on the usability of these spaces day to day at camp. So in the slideshow that was going, there were a few pictures of this space during construction, and then these are some shots I took in the later summer after construction had finished. So it's a really completely revitalized it. It's not quite done yet. We have to put the wood stove back in so we can use it, heat it in the winter. This winter I think we'll just heat it with some electric heaters probably when we stay there, but really opened it up. It's bright and airy. It's not, and took out all the old insulation, the tiling, and that sort of thing in there. So it's really a nice space to inhabit now. So this this kind of made it in here by accident, but it's just a little reminder that one of the things that we're going to be focusing on for the next year is about to replace the P3. We have a couple ideas that we're thinking of, but if you'd like to talk about that, we'd be happy to talk with you. But there's definitely a need for both a programming aspect of that the P3 filled and also a practical aspect. So we've been able to use our pontoon and the Eagle and a couple of our small boats to get us through this season and the past seasons, just lots of ferrying trips back and forth from the landing. But having a boat that can be driven by our SWAP licenses, so up to 12 passengers, and is heavy duty, reliable, and can also carry a lot of cargo. That's basically all the metrics that we're looking for. So we're thinking of something along the lines of, a heavy duty boat such as the Eagle or another pontoon, but one that's made a little more robustly for our uses at Pioneer Camp.
One of the things that Anna mentioned was our camper registrations. I think this is really fundamental to a financial review because it's exactly what we do at Pioneer. This is what the place is there for, is bringing children out for our summer camp sessions. Everything else is great and awesome. But this year, you may remember, we had a goal of 580 campers for this summer. So we actually fell short of this goal, and in some ways that's fairly disappointing, but also there are a lot of indicators as to why this happened. Back in April, the day that the news started talking about recessions, we were on course. We were about 15% ahead of every year's previous registrations, on track for our goal of 580, which, we're trying to inch our way back to those 2019 numbers. 600 campers is sort of the goal we want to get back to. We were on track for that, 15% ahead of typical registration. As soon as we started talking about recessions, we didn't have a registration for about a month and a half. So we dropped to about 10% behind standard registrations. This continued on and you should have seen me. I was sweating. We got to about June and all of a sudden registrations just started flooding in. But this got us to, and we did a lot of work to get word out, to give discounts and bring a friend deals and all of this sort of thing to get people thinking again. This is actually really relevant. This is vital for your community, your kids to go to. So in the meantime, we were able to adjust our budget fairly well towards the summer to draw back our expenses to meet this somewhat lower camper numbers. We had about the same revenue coming in for campers as we did the previous year due to inflation of camper costs. Just all that to say, when you're looking at this middle section of the brochure and you see this roller coaster of a chart here, just know that there's good things happening. Kids are still coming to camp. We're trying to keep our prices affordable and accessible to every camper. And I think that we can trust that as we're moving into the future, we can continue to do that. If you'll turn to the next chart, you'll see two columns. We've got what is actually a fairly standard and given previous years, maybe a little bit under shortfall from October 1st to the end of the year. That's a 3-month period of when people are giving their year-end donations. And so what I would like to say to this gray section on the top of the green column, estimated 2025 shortfall, is that yes, this is something that is doable, but there's still work to be done here. So what I would like to ask you is to get the word out. We need more people to give small amounts of money and support camp in these financial ways, support the ministry of camp. You'll see that we have our camp and rental fees, which is the bottom column, is about $461,000. And this is about 2/5 of the revenue that we need each year. I've readjusted our salaries and our pay scale to be able to bring our expenses down by about $100,000. And so this has made it so that less of the weight is on our donors, and more of that donation money can go towards the ministry. The hope is that we can continue to pay the volunteers that are coming out each summer. But what I would like to do is actually start to shrink that camp and rental fees gap and allow our donors' money to be more effective towards the ministry. It's never going to be 100%. We are a seasonal site. We can only access our site 5 months of the year, and really that site is only usable for 4 months of the year. But the goal, I think, here is to make sure that we're being incredibly responsible with our resources. We have still a deficit that was carried over from 2023 of $90,000. We were able to shrink that by about, 2023 it was 120. We were able to shrink that by about $30,000 last year. This is encouraging. These are huge numbers to a guy like me, you know. But it just to say $90,000 on top of an $82,000 shortfall that we're looking at for this year, we can start to inch away at this. So what I'm asking you here to do is just to remember, please invite your friends to be a part of this ministry, whether that's donating financially, sending campers. You'll notice our camper and rental fees is actually the bigger portion of our revenue. Please encourage your friends and family to send campers to camp. That's the biggest part of our revenue needs. I have one sort of last item to draw to your attention as far as our financial situation. And I'm not quite sure what to do about this yet. It's fairly significant, and we're going to move into the future prayerfully about this, and with a lot of caution and hopefully discernment. But right now we also have $75,000 that came from the sale of the P3. We need to purchase a new boat. Not only will this increase not only will this help our ministry at camp, but it'll make things safer, it'll make people more interested in the site, it'll allow us to do cruises on the lake more safely. We've got great ideas in the mix, but what we would like to do is to make sure that we get the most suitable boat for the ministry that we have. We have this money set aside. And I just want you to know, to be aware that while I'm also holding this money over here, we have this shortfall over here. And so I'd like to ask people to keep us in prayer. As we're moving towards the end of the year, we are going to be asking for year-end donations. And if well, maybe I'll leave it at that. One thing Jack mentioned was, I think this is maybe an appropriate way to end a financial review. I would love to hear some questions too, if you have any. One thing Jack said was, well, a lagoon pump, that's not a sizable cost as far as things go. I think our lagoon pump was about $1,500, $1,800. We've been arguing about whether we purchase a defibrillator for the last 10 years. A defibrillator is about $1,500 to $1,800. We did not purchase this lagoon pump lightly. It was a necessary part of the ministry that we have. Every penny that goes into this ministry is well thought out. It's a struggle to figure out what is the most necessary thing at this moment. And so even these smaller items, we don't just throw money around willy-nilly. We want to move forward knowing that this is a gift, as Pete says. God wants to continue to use this place for his good work. And so we'd like to continue to do that. Can I ask, can I open the floor to any questions? I don't want to draw this out too long, but I do want to hear from you and offer you the chance to ask in the community here. Yes?
If I were a very rich man and gave you $82,000 right now,
Yeah?
would that bring you up to date to a zero position, including covering the 2023 leftover deficit?
That would not. That would draw us to what we've spent just in 2025.
Okay, so the 2023 deficit carryover is in addition to the 82 you have now.
Correct.
So the total deficit is the sum of those two numbers.
That's correct.
Thank you. I'm not that rich.
I thought you were going somewhere with that. But, any other questions? I put arrows on here, and Emily said, take the arrows out. And I said, no, the arrows need to point towards the most important parts, which are the needs that we have. Just to clarify, these are estimates, and this is the likelihood of what the situation is. Yeah.
So generation to generation is a whole other set of work.
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah.
And so, is there an estimate of what's being looked for in donation for that this year, or that's just, I don't even know what I mean by this year, if I mean the end of 2025?
I'm hesitant to start to talk about the need, and it's not for fear of being transparent about the estimated cost of the new project. It's more to make sure that people are keeping in mind the immediate goal and project, one thing at a time, really. But
Launching in 2026.
correct, and in fact, we're going to gear the spring celebration towards the fundraising for the new building. The estimated cost is between $250,000 and $350,000 for this staff accommodation. We have In the bank, we have a donation of $100,000 towards the project, or else we would not even be talking about this project right now. We have a sizable momentum towards getting this project raised and completed. And so that is why we are willing to talk about this project, even in the midst of having some shortfall and deficit in view. Thanks, Tracy. All right. Yeah.
So I guess just one more question then. There's a third thing, which is the new boat.
Yes.
$75,000 to go towards that. What does the boat cost approximately? That has the specs that you guys are looking at?
Great question. So the Eagle, it's been estimated would cost about $100,000. That's with an outboard motor. That's very important to note because we do have an outboard motor ready to use. So we could get a hull and put that motor on. A new pontoon boat with great deck on it and a good little jumping diving board off the side actually would be cheaper than this. The likelihood is that it's between $65,000 and $100,000 for a new pontoon with with two outboard engines on it, one or two. But our hope is that we can make sure we're communicating those costs and our plans as we're moving forward. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, these are the three big things right now. But please keep in mind, and please communicate this to the community beyond this room, and remember, pin this to your fridge, please. Please pray for us. We need it.
The first note, if you know anybody who would be suitable, we're hiring. You remember a couple years ago, Neil and Sharon moved on, and we've kind of had a bit of a reshuffling, restructuring of year-round team, and we're covering our bases pretty well. But some bases that we could cover with some additional personnel are site manager and office coordinator. It could be up to full-time depending on the person. So just if somebody comes to mind or something, somebody has a prophecy, send them our way, and those are positions we're keeping our eyes open for. Another thing for you to keep in mind, camper registration is opening November 17 is the date I was told today. So that's very exciting. We'll be posting about that, and we're hoping to have some good incentives for people to register early. So yeah, we would love to meet those camper goals for this year. 580, let it happen, because that's what it's all about. So camper registration opening November 17. A lot of our young staff who were here headed out at the break. This announcement is the most relevant to them, but Anna and Alyssa, Christmas party at Spencer's, December 20. It'll be fun. Anyone else? I saw Kyle earlier, he left. Oh, Jack, you wanna come? Anyway, Christmas party at Spencer's. And in the new year, we'll be having a coffee house, and we'll publicize the date for that later.